is Rachel, and this is my comeback story. Growing up, I went to church on Sunday with my family. My father was always involved in the leadership, and I don't remember a time when I didn't know who Jesus was. I was a happy child. I grew up in the comforts of a good home. My parents took in foster children, and from the time I was 4 until I was 16, my parents fostered 117 kids who lived with us. I was a quiet kid, but growing up in that type of environment with 3 natural born siblings and 3 adopted siblings, I learned quick that being outgoing and making people laugh was a way to be heard. I was quite the prankster and always found a way to have a good time. When I was a teenager, I became pregnant with my first child. Of course, growing up in the home I lived in, I knew what I did was wrong, and I kept it a secret from most people. I only told a few of my friends, and they kept it a secret too. Some of them encouraged me to have an abortion, which I knew I could never do. So for 8 months, I hid my pregnancy. I was just scared all day, every day. I went through the motions. I wore baggy clothes and went to school as usual. I still played gym, and one girl I knew always stood in front of me while I changed so the other kids in class wouldn't see my belly. I was waiting for the baby to come and living in fear. I imagined myself giving birth in a bathroom stall on my own because I couldn't ever see telling my parents. Then one day I got into a huge fight with my sister Beth. She really didn't do anything wrong, but I really lashed out at her and just started beating her up. That's when my mom told me I was overreacting, and she asked if it was because I was failing gym class. I hesitated and told her that it was part of the reason because most days I wouldn't change my clothes for gym. I just was avoiding playing. She still didn't get it, but she kept prying, and I finally told her that I was pregnant. She freaked out and immediately told my dad. They asked me what my plan was, and I told them that I was going to give the baby up for adoption, not because I really deep down wanted to. I just thought that's what I should do, or they would want me to do. So they were okay with me giving the baby up for adoption, and that was the plan. One day I just remember sitting in my living room chair, and my mom came inside with a garbage bag over her shoulder, and she was carrying baby boy clothes in the bag. And at that time I had found out the sex of the child, and I asked her, why she brought the clothes in, and I asked her if I could keep the baby. So I remember my dad chiming in and saying that we don't give babies away in this family, we take them in. So at that point I decided that I was going to do it, and my parents were going to support me. So a month later, when I was 14 and a freshman in high school, I gave birth to my first son. I've looked back and often thought about my pregnancy, and I realized that I didn't get through the pregnancy on my own. God must have sent an angel who was with me through it all, because, it's hard. My family was supportive and helped me through one of the lowest points of my life. even after I gave birth, but even then I still was just navigating through life and hoping for the best. At some point in my early teen years, I stopped attending church. I instead had every Friday night free and used that time to drink with my friends. Anytime when I was free from parenting, I drank and experimented with drugs. It all made me feel so included in a world where I was so different. A teen mom. I was having a good time, but when I wasn't partying, I was still trying to be the best person and mother I could be, and even thought of myself as a Christian. I felt like I was a good person, and but in my late teen years, as if I didn't learn anything from my earlier mistakes, I was once again pregnant out of wedlock with my second child. I was 20, a single mom with 2 children. Unfortunately, having drinks with friends became my lifestyle as an adult. Even after I was married, I went to the bars a lot. I juggled married life, kids, and went back to school. When my kids were young, my sister Margaret invited me to go to the Bolivar United Methodist Church. We wanted our kids to be in Sunday school. She said she thought it would be good for our kids to grow up with a better understanding of right from wrong, and it would help them make better choices when they were older. Her reasoning made sense, and I started attending with all 4 of my kids. And now this actually makes me laugh because God had much bigger plans. So thankful that I attended Bolivar United Methodist Church and eventually OCC. I remember very clearly the day a few years ago when I pulled into my driveway while listening to Dr. David Jeremiah on the radio. And I heard him saying that if God had a rope to pull you out of a hole, it wouldn't matter if the hole was 10 feet deep or 10,000 feet deep. He'll still pull you out of that hole. There's nothing too deep for him. I got out of my car and I walked through my house into my bedroom, and I just kept thinking about all the things I had done in my life so far. There were too many things to even list, and I was continuing to add to that list daily. I reached my bedroom and I was changing out of my work clothes to put something more comfortable on, and I remember just stopping and staring at my shoe rack, and all of a sudden I just prayed out loud, and God, I've been in a hole for years. I want you to pull me out of this hole because I'm not getting anywhere on my own. At this point I had been attending OCC for a couple of years, but after this day, I decided I would finally take my sister Margaret up on the offer to join her small group on Wednesday nights at Pastor Dave's house. If you ask me then, I wouldn't necessarily say that I was on a downward spiral or anything like that. It was just like I knew that I was taking God for granted. It was as if I had always thought that someday I would take my relationship with Christ seriously, but someday. When I prayed that day, it was as if I had a paradigm shift. I knew that I couldn't move forward in my life without God being the leader. And the biggest thing was I knew that I would be okay because God could handle my past, knew my past. I was just handing over my future. Today, I'm more open and honest with people, and I don't get so angry anymore like I used to. I read the Bible, I serve in church, and still attend my small group. I think I've changed in many ways, but one thing that stands out in particular is when my second child, Delaney, needed her passport to go on a trip to Italy. She needed a copy of her birth certificate. Her father wasn't listed on the birth certificate that she had, and I wasn't expecting that I would have to list him on the new one. When the clerk at the town hall asked me to name him, I didn't know what to say. I just paused and said I'd rather not tell her. The clerk didn't understand and was not the friendliest when she told me that I needed to tell her, so I asked Delaney to go back out to the car, and when she left, I told the clerk that Delaney didn't know the father who raised her wasn't her biological father. This prompted me, with the help of my small group and their prayers, to finally tell Delaney the truth about who her real father was. I used to make jokes about how I've done everything backwards. I got pregnant, I got married, and then I went to school. I did this to myself. I chose a hard path that I'd never want to relive, but I would never give it back. The past couple of years, I've reflected on the way I was living. I have so many things I'm thankful for that are a result of this. I have a son who's a hardworking man now and is a productive and contributing member of society. And my other 3 children love being a part of OCC. I pray for my kids every day. I am walking with Christ. He welcomed me back without hesitation when the time was right.